You're losing.
I am.
Are you losing weight?
I am losing. I've lost about 10 pounds.
How are you doing it?
Funny name, but I've done it with Riduzone, RIDUzone.com, and the stuff works. It's, you get into all that, the molecule this and the found in that. All I can tell you is it makes you feel full, and it keeps your mind off of wanting to overeat.
And also boosts your metabolism, so you're burning more.
Yeah,
Try it today. It's going to work for you like it's worked for Brad and countless other people. Riduzone.com, RIDUzone.com. Dating today with all the crazies out there has to be nuts.
Yes, it really would. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place you could go to find people who think like you do?
Like me, like libertarians and conservatives?
Right?
There is. WeThePeople.dating.
Amazing. What a genius idea. This is a site that you can go to if you're single and you are looking for somebody who you're going to think the same way, as for from a political freedom standpoint. If you want to date the right person for you, you'll find them in one place. WeThePeople.dating.
All things food service, recipes, and restaurants. Spoony.
Hey folks, this is Chef Patrick Mosher, better known as the Food Biz Pro, here on Spoony Radio. We have shows regarding food culture, the restaurant business, consulting services for businesses, startups of all sorts, not just the restaurant industry. We talk about travel, food destinations. It's a lot of food, fun, and family. Mike from the World Food Championships will be coming on, giving us a weekly update on Saturday afternoons on what's new in the world of food sport. Yes, folks, I said food sport. No, it's not where competitors walk into Kitchen Stadium and beat each other to death with a limp fish. It's where you have 2,000 events which lead to the World Food Championships. Join us for the World Food Championship updates every week. Join us on Spoony on the Dash Radio Network, 24/7 Food Talk Radio.
We're not solving all the world's problems, but we're bringing people to the table. Spoony, food and fun.
Welcome into Doc's House of Flapjacks. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today. Can you eat flamingos? We'll also discuss jammy eggs, whatever the hell those are, and a very special anniversary today. Also, today's list, comfort foods. So there is this new phenomena that's making its way around the internet. Actually, a couple of them we got to talk about. The first is, can you eat flamingos? I find this hilarious because I thought I was one of the few people or only person out there that wondered, can you eat that? I think this all the time. I go to the zoo and I'm like, can you eat penguins? I bet you can eat penguins. Why wouldn't you be able to eat penguins? And apparently, not only do other people wonder if you can eat flamingos, this started making its way around the internet when somebody typed into Google, can you eat? And one of the first things that comes up is flamingo. Now, one of the stories I saw about this, it also autofilled a bunch of other things. You know, when you write, can you eat? And it gives you all the suggestions, the autofill. And penguin was on the list, a bunch of different stuff. Flamingos. Can you eat flamingos? Yes, you can, as it turns out. Flamingo consumption dates all the way back, recorded history, references to eating flamingos to the Roman days, 1st century, when they talked about boiling them with spices and wine. Ooh. Spices and wine. I don't know if I like the recipe, but okay. Not a lot of meat on them, but you get a little bit there.
It's got wine, who cares?
A little bit of wine for the flamingo boiling, a little bit for Doc. Now, in the U.S. and a bunch of other countries, it's illegal to eat them because they're protected under the Migratory Bird Act, so you can't kill them. But you can technically eat them. You won't get sick. I don't know if they're any good or not. I've eaten a lot of wild meat. I've had bear and gator and shark, and I've had frog legs. That's not all that weird. Bear is probably one of the weirdest things I've eaten.
Bear's a little greasy. It's kind of a rich flavor.
It's very beef-esque, in my opinion. It's a very heavy and kind of gristly meat. It's not, at least
Very
the bear
fatty.
I had. I haven't had a lot of it. But it was, fatty and a little bit tough. I mean, it's a lot of muscle there, right? Bears are strong, right?
Yes, they are.
But wasn't bad. Actually was not bad at all. I've had duck and chicken and all kinds of stuff.
I'd mention a few others I've had, but I'm sure there'll be jokes going around the internet in a minute.
I gotcha. Squirrel, you've had squirrel, right?
I've had squirrel, cougar.
Cougar? Interesting.
Yeah. Mountain lion. Let's call it mountain lion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How was that? Is chicken-esque?
Actually, yeah, it actually has it's not beefy. It's between beef and chicken somewhere in there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've had
interesting.
I've had ostrich and bison a bunch of different ways.
I've had that.
I've had
kangaroo burger.
How was that?
It was actually pretty good. It was very similar to ostrich.
See, I'd be afraid
a little
that it
more
would
gamey.
Yeah, I would be afraid that it would keep bouncing back up. Because
as long as it's dead when you cook it, I think it's okay.
Oh, okay, very good. Ostrich, I've had several different ways. I've had ostrich beef. Ostrich is amazing. And I also had an ostrich tenderloin one time. Was very good. The problem is they cooked it too rare.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's a very upscale place or whatever. And it should have been done a little bit more. And tenderloin's tricky to to cook anyways.
Well, I'm just trying to think where. So the tenderloin runs like below the backbone, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an area on the animal that gets very little movement.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really have a chicken tenderloin. You don't have a turkey tenderloin.
It was like a beef. It was actually a pork tenderloin is what it was like.
Yeah,
because it's smaller.
Exactly.
Narrower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the problem is, and the way I had it cooked, it was more like a Chateaubriand. So it was,
the center cut of
the center cut and a whole piece of it. It wasn't like one fillet. Had it been done in medallions or that, it would have been much better. But the thing about ostrich is it's considered a white meat as far as the healthiness goes.
Very lean.
Very lean and awesome. But it's a better protein than even beef. And it, when you eat it, you're not going, oh, it's like chicken. It's a bird. No, it's not fowl.
It doesn't taste like that.
It tastes like more on the palate of a beef.
Yeah, and it's more bioavailable than cooked beef is. Cooked beef is very hard for your body to ingest the protein from.
I've noticed recently too. I don't know. I've gotten some bad cuts of beef. They're kind of gamey. I've had some cuts recently. I've just noticed that are kind of gamey.
Well, if you go back 50 years ago when we were kids, 40 years ago, beef had flavor. It wasn't corn finished. It was all grass fed.
Oh yeah,
and it got exercise because they had it out at the pasture. It wasn't it wasn't in these little tiny pens with because most beef now is still it's kind of pasture raised to some extent, but then they corn finish it for however long.
Gotcha. So flamingos, that's interesting. By the way, going back in the 19th century, there were so many flamingos. People were just hunting them in mass down in Florida and other places around the world. There are reports, news clippings in that where they were paying people for a pair of flamingos. They just go out and in the water and get them. $4, $5, $6 a pair. That's big money. 100 and some years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So they do this. There was one story of a guy who said he went out and got 100 flamingos that day.
Wow, that's crazy.
So $50 times 4, and back in the day, you make $200. What was it? What would that be today? Making 15,000 or something?
Probably something like that. Yeah,
huge. So they do it, and they would use them. The reason they were paying for them, they used them primarily for the plumes. They used them for ladies' hats.
That makes sense.
100 and whatever years ago,
back
women wore
the flappers
hats.
Era.
And they wore the fancy hats, little pillbox, but they still had feathers and stuff like that. And yeah, absolutely. During the Roaring 20s, a lot of those flappers hats had little feathers on them.
Art Deco era, yep.
Oh, Art Deco era, awesome. And then secondarily, they would sell the meat almost as a second, and people became familiar with it. So in America, they made a lot of meat, or ate a lot of flamingo meat. And one of the most fascinating historical stories is that there was a push to make hippo meat a staple in America. I'm telling this story from memory, and I'm sure I'm going to miss some fascinating pieces of it and maybe get just bits of it wrong, but the overall story should be accurate. Do the research yourself, and you will find this fascinating. There was a congressman who proposed, with the help of 2 other guys, making hippopotamus a staple meat in America. Congressman realized, along with the help of these other 2 guys, that we had a problem in the South. And down along these little wide waterways in the South, there was, overgrown vegetation. All of these plants, these very viney plants, were in the water, and they were clogging up the waterways. So there were these 2 guys, and I can't remember their names, but they were mortal enemies at one point. One of them even shot the other one or took a shot at him, tried to kill him or put out a hit on him. It was like that. And one of them was kind of an adventurer and was the model, so to speak, for the Boy Scouts. He's a guy that was a known scout in America. And this back in the mid to late 1800s, let's say 1870s, 80s, somewhere in there. He was the inspiration for the Boy Scouts, that you would go out, this adventurer, right? Out in the wilderness. Now, at some point in there, he and this other guy who were at odds with each other patched things up and said, we've got this idea. In addition to there being clogged waterways down south with all of these viney plants, we were having a meat shortage. This is back just before the muckraker era, when the Chicago stockyards, processed a lot of meat for, Americans. And they said because of disease and more Americans' desire for meat, there was actually a bit of a meat shortage as far as beef goes. So they're like, what are we going to do? We need more meat. Can't get it fast enough. And we have these clogged waterways. And one of the three said, we need meat that will graze on the stuff in the clogged waterways. We need a meaty cow-like animal that grazes on plants in the water. Inspiration, hippopotamus. So they got this congressman to carry a bill to the floor of Congress that encouraged and I believe set up some grants and funding for hippopotamus importation to America and to seed American waterways with hippos, that they would someday flourish there. And I don't know what the end up, how it died. I think it was probably people in Congress going, are you out of your mind? But this was a big deal. And there's so many moving parts. What with this one guy who was an inspiration for the Boy Scouts. It's an incredible story. Now, think to yourself, what would America be like if we had those hippopotami all throughout those southern waterways? Was that a problem? Well, the hippopotamus are crazy dangerous. You're aware of that, right?
Number one killer in Africa.
Yeah, crazy. Mm-hmm. We always see the hippopotamus in cartoons, jovial, with flat teeth. Hippopotamus, they are mean.
Absolutely.
But it's not like crocs are nice and they're all over the waterways.
No, you're right. You're right. But I think maybe they're more stealthy. I don't know. And not really. Crocs aren't in the water.
Yeah, right. So
did they see it as an easy food source, perhaps?
They did. They saw it as an easy food source and to also eat all of the vegetation that was. The waterways were so clogged down there with these viney plants, it was becoming stagnant at times. And they're like, this will clean it out. I applaud them right off for being so creative. It's amazing. Good for you. And then
I wonder though what it did to the other indigenous species there, because they eat a lot.
Right, absolutely. That's in today's world we wouldn't even consider this, but would hippopotamus be that big of a problem down there? There's always the unforeseen, but off the top of my head, I think they would be less of a problem than some of the other species that we've introduced or have accidentally been introduced, which is doing more damage. The non-indigenous snakes to the Florida Everglades or hippopotamus?
Oh, it's definitely those carp that fly up and hit you in the head in the Great Lakes.
A few of those, yeah. No, but the snakes have no predators. The constrictors that are down there, the pythons and that, they have no predators. Nobody's eating them with the exception of other snakes, and occasionally a croc will get them. Or an alligator, not a croc.
And there are a lot of large constrictor snakes down there.
Tons of them.
Because people buy them, they don't want them anymore, and they just release them.
That, and I believe it was Hurricane Andrew in the 90s, blew, and most people don't even know this, it blew apart a reptile shelter with thousands of snakes in it. And they were all off into the wild. And it was over. So hippopotamus maybe could have eaten too much of the green stuff, right? The plants.
I'm wondering what that would have done to the to natural shelters for fish and other animals.
So a little bit would have been good, but maybe it would have been too much.
Yeah, you have what do you call the manatees down there as well? What if that would have been affected?
And so then the next question is, what would life be like if you're just down there saying? I mean, where we would have grown up with, hippopotamus in Florida.
That would have been kind of cool,
right? I mean, but it would be a non-issue now where you're like, so wild, they have hippopotamus where they live. We'd have them here. And then finally, it begs the question, what does hippo meat taste like?
I don't know. It's got to have a really, really thick fat
Oh, the fat's going to be huge.
I can't believe.
So
talk about pork belly. What about hippo belly?
Right. Well, let's talk this through then. Okay. Huge fat layer. So what other animals have that big of a fat layer? Pork, right?
Yeah.
Not that big, but close to it. More so than other meats, right? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot of times, if there's an animal that spends its time in the water, it has that, at least a little hint of fishiness. Like even alligators and crocodiles, stuff like that, has a little, I don't know if it would have. I mean, hippopotamus means river horse, and it spends almost all of its time in the water. Would it necessarily have that? I don't know. That wouldn't sound good. Is it more red? Is it more white? We got to find out. I got to have hippo at some time. A big hippo steak. Ptss. I imagine the steaks from hippos would be like Fred Flintstone steaks. Ptss. Bigger than the grill, you know? Anyways, interesting, fascinating stuff. All right, so can you eat flamingos? Yes. Can you eat hippopotamus? Yes. And we almost had that as a staple on our diets. What about jammy eggs? Jamy eggs. Jammy eggs. Can you eat those? Of course you can. What are jammy eggs? Well, I'll share that with you in just a moment. But first, you know something else you can eat? Yeah, Spoony wild rice. The wild rice from the North Woods of Minnesota. So imagine you grow up in Florida and hippopotamus meat's just a thing. Now imagine you grow up in Seattle or New England or something, and maybe hippo meat isn't a thing there because it's, you know, primarily down south. I mean, how often do you get alligator in Chicago or someplace? I mean, in an exotic meat place, sure, but it's going to be more common down south. Well, there are parts of America that are not familiar with Minnesota's natural grain, the only native grain in North America, and that's Minnestalgia wild rice. If you grow up in Minnesota or maybe parts of Wisconsin, you're familiar with this rice. It's wild harvested by the great folks at Minnestalgia. And you can just go to SpoonyWildRice.com, SpoonyWildRice.com, and find it for yourself. But it is so amazing. It's more of a grain than it is a rice, but it eats like a rice, like a kind of like a wild rice. And if you add a little more water and cook it a little bit longer, or a little more liquid in case you're using a broth and cook it a little bit longer, it becomes a little more chewy. The flavor is awesome. And I just found out today from my buddy Brad that it's actually considered a water grass. It's a seed of a water grass or an aqua grass along the lines of a bamboo. That's another aqua grass. Think of grasses that grow in the water or near the water, stuff like that, right? That's what this is. Now, all rices grow with a lot of water, sure, so they're all kind of in that direction, but that's how you have to think about this stuff. Naturally gluten, cholesterol-free, trace minerals, and vitamins. It's awesome. Go to SpoonyWildRice.com and try it today. SpoonyWildRice.com. And while you're there, check out the other edible memories from the North Woods of Minnesota. They do it right. SpoonyWildRice.com. SpoonyWildRice.com. Lots of ways to cook it, and it is fantastic. All right. Jammy eggs. Jammy eggs. Jamy eggs. It's all over Instagram. Have you seen it? I literally just became aware of jammy eggs less than 24 hours ago. Last night I was like, jammy eggs? What the hell's jammy eggs? Are you ready? Jammy eggs are soft-boiled eggs. I get annoyed by stuff like this, and yet I'm also fascinated by it. So I'm kind of torn. On one hand, I'm annoyed that you change the name and suddenly it becomes a thing and people are, oh, jammy eggs. They're just soft-boiled eggs. In fact, a year ago, if I had suggested some of these same people, soft-boiled eggs? No, I don't know what that means. No, I love jammy eggs. So that annoys me that there has to be new marketing and new suggestions to people before they'll try some classic things that are amazing. But on the other hand, at least it's coming around again. At least people are willing to try. How many times you say to somebody younger, you're like, oh, have you ever tried? And they're like, no, it sounds good. Try it. No. Just try it. Soft-boiled eggs are fantastic. You cook them less than you do hard-boiled eggs. Ding, done. That's it. Hard-boiled eggs, obviously cooked all the way through. Jammy eggs or soft-boiled eggs, you end up with the centers where they're... Have you ever undercooked a hard-boiled egg? In just that one spot in the middle gets that... It's not cooked all the way through.
It's not quite gooey. It's just lighter colored and a little softer.
Yeah, and when the yolks are opaque, they become creamy, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you don't cook the yolk all the way, it has that translucent quality to it, just a little shine to it.
You still got that kind of orangey color to it instead of the yellow.
Right.
Man.
Well, jammy eggs are like that, except it's pretty much the whole yolk. It's not just that spot in the middle when you screw up and don't cook hard-boiled eggs enough.
So like an overcooked 3-minute egg, which is the German style where you scoop it out of the shell.
Okay,
kind of soft
Patrick.
in the
Okay,
middle.
so one of the things I saw, it said soft-boiled eggs cook 6.5 minutes. That's too much, isn't it?
Yeah, because
That
it's
seems
about 10
long to
minutes
me.
for a hard-boiled egg. So I think you're getting pretty close there. Yeah.
Okay, when you say 10 minutes for a hard-boiled egg, is that put the egg in boiling water 10 minutes from now, it's hard-boiled? Or
yeah,
is that
so
putting it in warm
I
water?
put the eggs in cold water, bring them
Okay.
up to a boil, let it go for that long, and then turn it off, and I put them in cold water right away
And the 10 minutes is when you put them in the water or when it starts boiling?
when it starts boiling.
See, I think again, I always screw up the timing of my eggs. I always have to look it up. But I'm thinking I would leave them in the water like 6 minutes and they would be cooked through.
Let's do some testing.
Seriously, I want to do this.
We have a skillet.
I'm really frustrated by that because if you're looking for a hard-boiled egg for a recipe or something like that, you're going to slice it for something and it comes out soft, it's annoying. But if you overcook a hard-boiled egg and it gets that green shine to the outside of the yolk or whatever, not shine, that green layer, that just is not good. The perfect hard-boiled egg has none of that green layer between the yolk, it's actually on the yolk, and the white. None of that green layer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
you
just-
don't want that.
You want the yellow yolk cooked completely through. It's creamy. It falls apart. It's not translucent at all. Same consistency through the yolk, but no green layer. So it's
Exactly.
just white and yellow, right? Okay.
Yeah, and if you overcook it too much, then it turns kind of grayish almost on the outside. That green layer,
Yeah.
and it's really rubbery. It's even hard to break the yolk up.
Yeah. So, and then the whites become rubbery. He's right. That's not good. But it's saying 6.5 minutes. Soft-boiled eggs, though, are fantastic. Now, one of the other forgotten dishes out there that you don't hear a lot about, today's world, you don't hear a lot about soft-boiled eggs, so at least people are calling them jammy eggs and doing stuff with them again. That's cool. Is the poached egg. Poached eggs are fantastic. Poached eggs, 7 minutes it's saying for the egg? Okay.
That's
for the hard-boiled?
6 to 7 minutes. You're right.
For hard-boiled?
For hard-boiled.
See, I thought they were a little off on
See,
that.
I never do the hard-boiled. I would do the 3-minute eggs. So
Okay. So, poached is you crack the egg in water and you cook it in water. So it's essentially like a fried egg, except you're not introducing the temperature directly to the egg and there's no oil. Now, Chef Patrick has a couple of tips that he always shares with me on how to cook the poached eggs. And the first, and he taught me this, is swirl the water when you crack the egg in, and that makes it keep together. Otherwise, it'll spread out in the water too much, right?
yeah. So actually, prior to that, put a cap full of white vinegar in there.
That's the one I forget.
Yep, and then swirl it. It doesn't have to be swirling fast, but if you swirl the water in a circular motion, like a whirlpool,
It holds it to the center, right?
exactly. You drop the egg in the middle, and it keeps the white in that area, and it
Now, poached eggs the yolks are supposed to be runny, right?
yes, all the way runny. Now, they might have a tiny bit of cook, but typically 100% runny. Just the white gets cooked.
So it's like an over easy egg type, right? I mean, that's what it is, where the yolk is
Yes.
centered. If you were to fry it, at least the consistency
Exactly.
of the yolk goes. Okay, cool. But those are, and I always end up because it just seems faster if I'm already cooking other things and I have a frying pan to just fry it in there. But a lot of times if I'm making a dish that requires me to ladle an egg over the top of it, some things I've made, like a Eggs Benedict, right?
Absolutely.
Is that
one of my
supposed
favorite
to,
dishes.
is that supposed to be poached?
Yes, it is.
You know
But
what's
you can
funny
fry
about
it.
that? Yeah, you can, and I think I normally do. But that is so wonderful. The whites are what I love of the poached egg, because there's not that I don't love the crispy of a fried at times, but it is so fluffy when you poach an egg. The whites are, the texture so wonderful. It's soft. It's like
like a
marshmallow
cloud.
or a cloud, right? It's fantastic.
Yeah. So and what that does is that you get the extra protein and volume from that without really hindering the flavor and the richness of the yolk either, because it's really clean.
Yeah.
Poached eggs are really light. The white is, and it's really clean. There's not a lot of flavor. It's just a texture, and then you get right to the yolk, which is, of course, the key.
Prediction over the next 5 to 10 years. Hard-boiled, soft-boiled, and poached eggs. Eggs cooked that way are going to become a thing like you have not seen in a long time.
I think you're starting to see poached eggs everywhere.
It's clean, like he said. That's a great way to describe it. I love I love the description of clean when it comes to food. And that sounds odd because you think of cleaning of chemicals. And no. Unencumbered by a lot of additional things, sauces, oils. It's cooked in a less harsh way. It's not fried. I love that description. It's awesome. But younger generations are more naturally at their age than our generations, health conscious. And older generations, baby boomers, Gen X's, we are becoming more health conscious because we're old and we got to live longer and my back and, So I think these are going to become more and more. So imagine these very simple dishes with some superfoods thrown in like this. Some sort of greenery. Think about this. Imagine using Mojo wild rice or Spoony wild rice, right?
Ooh.
Spoony wild rice. And you mix in with it, Patrick, off the top of my head, some green, kale, spinach probably. Let's say spinach.
Kale would be good. Sauteed kale.
Yeah.
Or even crispy kale that you baked off in the oven.
Ooh. So you introduce that into it, right? And then I'm thinking, you spice it all up. And then I wouldn't even put any other protein in there. And then something to add a little sweetness to it or a little acid. So
I think maybe like a citrus vinaigrette of some sort.
Oh, that would be good. Mm-hmm. I do love going chopped Granny Smith apples real fine in there,
we'll talk
too.
about making the easiest vinaigrettes in a minute. I'll give you the secret to every vinaigrette you ever wanted.
And then on top of that, right, so you got this bowl of this Spoony wild rice and the spinach in there, and it's heated and it's warm and it's good and it's spiced, and you got just a little bit of acid or sweet in there with the apples or
green
vinaigrette.
onion in there.
And then you top that. A nice poached egg.
Oh, yeah.
And you cut into that egg, and the yolk runs down over it, and you get the soft, texture-wise, fantastic. It's going to be awesome. All right, more coming back, and I'll also give you some recipes with the jammy eggs next on Spoony.com. Dating today with all the crazies out there has to be nuts.
Yes, it really would. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place you could go to find people who think like you do?
Like me, like libertarians and conservatives?
Right?
There is WeThePeople.dating.
Amazing. What a genius idea. This is a site that you can go to if you're single and you are looking for somebody who you're going to think the same way as from a political freedom standpoint. If you want to date the right person for you, you'll find them in one place. WeThePeople.dating.
Take the pain.
It looks like you're losing.
I am.
Are you losing weight?
I am losing. I've lost about 10 pounds.
How are you doing it?
It's a funny name, but I've done it with Riduzone, RIDUzone.com, and the stuff works. It's, you get into all that, the molecule this and the found in that. All I can tell you is it makes you feel full, and it keeps your mind off of wanting to overeat.
And also boosts your metabolism, so you're burning more.
Yeah,
try it today. It's going to work for you like it's worked for Brad and countless other people. Riduzone.com, RIDUzone.com.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase. Take the pain out of ordering your diabetic testing supplies with Diathrive. Diathrive ships the testing supplies you need directly to you when you need them. Best of all, with plans starting as low as $8 a month, Diathrive is probably going to cost
Hey there, it's Doc Thompson. Welcome back to Doc's House of Flapjacks. Lots of good stuff coming on today. By the way, we're talking about the autofill on Google. And some other people had commented and sent me some questions and some suggestions. Some of the other things that autofilled when you type in, and try it for yourself. Some of it is obviously dictated by other searches you've had, the region you're in. But when I type in to Google, can you eat? First one that comes up, a flamingo. Then acorns, beans on the keto diet, corn on the keto, horse apples, raw shrimp, cheese on the keto diet, raw egg, salmon skin, and mango skin. If I type in, can you eat A, it changes it a bit. A flamingo, a horse apple, apple seeds, aloe vera, a rooster, a gourd, a buckeye. By the way, no, you can't eat a buckeye. You can't eat the nut from a buckeye tree. I say that because those people in and around Ohio know there's another type of buckeye, the little chocolate with the peanut butter in it. So imagine a chocolate-covered cherry, the shape of that. Imagine the top cut off it. Have you ever seen the Buckeyes? Imagine the top cut off a chocolate-covered cherry, the shape of a chocolate-covered cherry.
Oh, yeah.
Just sliced right off, and then it's filled with kind of like a peanut butter fudge.
Ooh.
So it's a peanut butter fudge inside of like a chocolate casing, and it looks like a Buckeye, well, at least a little bit, and around Ohio.
Before, yeah.
Yeah. Can you eat acorn squash seeds, and can you eat a bat? I don't know if you can eat a bat, but I'm going to say you should probably avoid that.
You can.
You can?
You can. I've seen them being cooked on National Geographic shows. Yeah. Hey, it's that I can probably attest to the fact that the feet don't stick in your throat like cricket legs do.
Patrick's
yeah, I think you
legs.
break the whole leg off on that one. Just eat the body. I don't think there's much meat on the wings or the legs.
I know in the Three Amigos they roasted a bat around the fire, so I guess you can.
How did you not have to eat any bugs that morning? How did you stay away from the insects? I know you weren't feeling well, but come on.
Here's the thing. I'll try. I would probably try anything given the right circumstances, money or alcohol involved.
Alcohol, typically, yes.
I can put my mind right and get beyond some of the disgust factor.
It wasn't
stuff.
that day.
It was not that day, and I figured let's just let everybody else try. I would if there's alcohol involved. Oh crap! I'll eat anything.
Okay, so next time I'll bring the alcohol, and it won't be a problem.
Oh, my natural tendency, people react differently to alcohol, and mine starts with loud. Imagine that, because I'm already loud. Over the top, and let's go do this really stupid, big, dangerous thing. That's how I start. So if you put food on the table that's avant-garde, different, unique, I'll eat that. I'll try it. Or if there's money involved, put something disgusting on the table. You put enough money down there, and it does not have to be a lot. And
we've had that conversation before. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll do that. I have not had a lot of bugs like intentionally. I mean, a couple of while your jug gets in there like that, but there are entire industries on raising edible cockroaches where they're sterile and you don't have to worry about them bringing diseases and stuff. I saw this story in, I think, China, somewhere in Asia, where entire company starts a cockroach business. And you get these cockroaches that are not going to be, they don't have disease. I don't know how they tell or what they do. But you know how they farm them?
You're going to tell me.
This is, you ever see mushrooms farmed?
Yes, on logs. Do they do that with a carcass?
Well, no, I mean, like in a mushroom farm where it's in the dark and just have trays of dirt and mushrooms, and you go into, a little makeshift building outside somewhere and it's just dark and you go in there, there's mushrooms, right? Mm-hmm. It's like that, except not as much work. They throw all of these cockroaches in to a building with no cracks, no doors, nothing. Okay. And they just go away. I don't know what type of foods they're putting in there, but it's not a lot. And it's just like, I'll come back in like 4 months and I'll just get some of them.
They'll go in waist deep.
Oh, and that's what happens.
So, but how do you determine the mature from the less mature? They don't care. They just get them.
Know.
They get what's available.
But it was, and this is a while ago. I read the article, but I was like, no, just throw them in there quickly, seal it up.
We just skim off the top.
That's what it is. And these things just, so they open it up, and it is just a mound of cockroaches.
And can I tell you, those things fly?
Oh, not all of them, do they?
Oh, the experiences I've had, they fly.
So that and grasshoppers, these things are possibly going to be a staple in diets of the future.
I believe
if we continue with population to have challenges when it comes to food, our options are simple. We grow more food ourselves at our house with like those little topsy-turvy tomato things. grocery stores and that will grow more stuff, aeroponics or hydroponics, where you're not destroying the plant and it's right there. Likely a combination of these things. There will be additional food supplements, let's say, or processed food. It's people. Soylent Green is people. It may not be made of people, but there will be supplements, produced healthy food, pellets, powders.
I would think that they have insect protein, and I'm sure that the flowers are coming right behind if they're not already on the market.
And then these things, they reproduce like crazy, and the protein is off the charts.
Absolutely.
They have something called, and yes, it's what it sounds like, cockroach milk.
I'm going to mute my button right here while
Vomit?
Excuse me, yes.
Cockroach milk. I'm almost how do the machine must be really tiny.
So, do you think that's...
used to be a dairy farmer with the cows. I had a couple goat here and there, and I just realized there's a big call for cockroach milk. So me and Junior, we just, one by one, we look up the little cockroach. Okay, this one's... We have thousands of little...
I was envisioning something more like the Bassomatic.
The Bassomatic 3000?
Yeah, where they go and they pure it up a little water and then they strain that off.
I'm pretty sure there's something called... I know I did not imagine this online.
I got to look this up right now. Okay, give me a minute.
So you're likely going to see something like that, whether it's powdered and added as a supplement or into a pill form, or if we're just going to be going, I'll have the cockroach salad. You know the nice thing about having cockroaches on the menu?
What's that?
People are not going to be as upset when there's a cockroach in there. I just saw a cockroach in that restaurant. Oh, he got away from us when we were adding him to your salad. It's not going to be a disgust factor. No. Well, and from a restaurant standpoint, you don't even have to order them. You just look underneath the refrigerator and you've got dinner tonight.
In China, when you see the little black flecks in the rice, they say, "What's that? Protein. Just eat it.
Just eat it.
Just eat it.
Yeah, that's no.
Don't ask."
So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. All right, jammy eggs, pretty much just soft boiled eggs. And here's some of the interesting recipes that came up. And Patrick and I just kind of threw one and imagined one together. This looks really interesting. I love this. 15-minute butter ramen noodles with the jammy eggs or soft-boiled eggs. I love me some ramen.
One of my favorite meals.
It's awesome. Patrick and I actually have a concept for ramen noodles, some stuff. I'm not going to say what it is, but if you would like to invest in our harebrained schemes, you can contact us through Spoony.com.
I'll tell you what it is as long as you buy the domain from me.
Don't tell them. But we do have the quick side note here. If you'd like a program, Spoony.com, we're on Dash Radio. We're on iHeartRadio. It's only going to grow from here. We've got a lot of exciting shows coming up. We're beginning to broker some time on the weekends, evenings, and afternoons and stuff. Contact us through Spoony.com. Contact us, and we will be happy to explore your content. If it is content that is likely going to be fairly easy for us to sell some commercials, and you notice we just do a handful of live commercials during the broadcast, then we'd likely hire you, work out some sort of deal to put you on. If not as easily sellable, where it'll take us more money, I mean, it's all time versus money for us, we'll still sell you the hour in full, complete form. It's called brokered time, and you can sell it yourself, or you can just build your brand, whatever you want to do with the hour within the structure of what this format is. So contact us, Spoony.com. And we'll put you on. Be exciting. And you're getting into the ground floor, so the prices are going to be relatively low right now. We'll lock you in for a while. All right, so the jammy eggs with the ramen noodles. Now listen to this. The recipe I see for this is really cool because it's not just ramen. It's butter ramen noodles, which is automatically a good thing. And it also has some green in it. And I'm scrolling down to see what the green is. Oh, it looks like... Is it two things? It looks like it could be the zoodles, the zucchini noodles. But I'm trying to see if it also has fresh basil zoodles, which is the spiral zucchini noodles. Listen to what this has in it. Because when I saw this, I thought this was other greens. So it's ramen noodles, 6 tablespoons of butter, 4 cloves of garlic. You're already in the...
I'm in
right
already.
There, yeah.
Butter and garlic.
1-inch piece fresh ginger peeled and grated. So a little bit of grated ginger. Okay. Tablespoon of white miso paste. 2 small or 1 medium zucchini spiral noodles,
Okay.
soy sauce, and fresh basil chopped up. Toasted sesame seeds for serving, and then also served with the little jammy eggs or soft-boiled eggs sliced in half and on top.
And that's pretty typical to have that kind of an egg on top of ramen. If you ask for it, that's the type of egg you get.
Well, and when it comes to Korea, there's a lot of times they put the egg on top and you cut it up as part of it, like bibimbap, right? It's a mixed rice. You just put it in there. And
Delicious.
yeah,
Delicious.
Awesome. So that sounds good. That would be a fun thing to use. Here's another way with the jammy eggs. Kiso brunch bowl with soft boiled eggs, creamy avocado, tofu puffs, and miso mustard dressing. It looks fantastic. And the picture of this looks awesome. This comes to us, by the way, at Yahoo. It's a Yahoo list. The tofu puffs are great because they're kind of crispy on the outside is how they did them. You know how when you
So which one are they?
This is the tofu. You've had tofu
Okay, so
where it's
that's
fried along the edges.
Aburage, yeah. So they cut them into chunks and then they deep fry them. So the outside gets kind of crispy and spongy.
I like that much better than
it's
just
so
cut.
awesome.
Yeah. And in this application, it's great because it's in there with the quinoa too. A lot of these soft-boiled eggs or the jammy eggs, they say, are just sliced on top of stuff like this. Kale Caesar salad. Here's one, a hummus and veggie breakfast bowl.
Ooh.
So think about that. A lot of greens in it, some green peppers, bell peppers, hummus, sliced avocado, and then the eggs with it.
See, I never thought about hummus as the base because it's so thick.
Right.
But it sounds really good.
Yeah, exactly. And this is going to be one of those dishes you are eating combinations of things. This is not, I'm going to have eat the avocado first. You've got to have a slice of the egg, the avocado, and all the stuff with it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of these are like that where it's separate things, you know, on the plate together. It's not really a mix like
Kind
the
of
ramen noodles.
deconstructed, yeah.
Yeah. Miso ramen, rice noodles, roasted sweet potato, and sesame broccolini.
Ooh, broccolini. I like broccolini. Yeah, so that looks like broccolini looks like almost like a thinner, it looks like an asparagus stalk, but it's broccoli, and then it has a very small floret at the top, just a little bit. So it's they're easy to saute, grill, serve as very individual portions because you can just put 3 of those stalks down, and it makes the perfect portion.
All right, you ready for this? Everything spice egg avocado yogurt bowl. There's a lot going on. I mean, you could do this again with the Spoony Wild rice too. Anything, rice or quinoa or anything you could do with that. This is crazy what they have in this. So let me roll out this list because this is big. Because you think of yogurt as being primarily sweet in that, unless you're going to top it on in replacement of like a sour cream or something.
Yeah.
By the way, that's a really healthy alternative. You haven't figured that out yet. If you're eating Mexican food and you're a sour cream buff or you're trying to cut calories and fat or whatever, replace it with a Greek yogurt, just not flavored. It's in the same vein, may not be exactly the same, but you're going to save all the calories in that. So a cup of plain fat-free, plain full-fat Greek yogurt, cooked brown rice, farro or quinoa. Again, I think you'd probably use Spoony Wild rice with it. 2 eggs, soft-boiled, poached or fried, they say, and just sliced on top. An avocado slice, juice from a lemon, 2 tablespoons of everything bagel spice.
Ooh.
Think about that in this. That's bizarre, right?
I love that. Everything bagel spice is the best.
Yep. A cup of arugula. Hello, member of the lettuce family. That's a whole different story. Flaky sea salt, extra virgin olive oil, and chopped chives, basil, or dill.
That sounds
That's
delicious.
pretty good, isn't
that? Sounds really good.
It's very different. Avocado toast with soft-boiled eggs. How millennial do you get?
But, actually, so, I avocado toast is kind of messy anyway, so it's eaten with a knife and a fork. I would really like a poached egg on that.
Yeah. And then they suggest, and I really like this, as part of charcuterie.
Oh, absolutely. That would be good.
Right?
Because they've often done pickled eggs on the boards.
Yeah. And any board or any, I say charcuterie is usually meat, though, isn't it? Meat and cheese. We don't think of it as vegetables and stuff like that, do we?
Yeah, but if you say a charcuterie board, typically, if you go to a restaurant, a lot of times it's mixed cheese and meat. But yeah, charcuterie officially is like cured meats.
Okay, because that would be, Patrick and I have talked about this before. If we ever open a place for breakfast or a place where we broadcast from, is offering combinations of stuff like that. You've seen the nosh boxes they have? Where it's
Those are awesome.
Yeah, it's the same concept there where you're sitting and you can have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So that would be one heck of an application for that.
Remember the grazing table thing I talked about yesterday?
What was that?
Oh, you didn't listen to my show. I have to because I'm in the booth. But
yeah,
grazing tables. There's a name.
Oh, you're right. Quick, buy the domain. Buy the domain.
All
Anyways, just some things. They're called jammy eggs now. They're all over Instagram. Jammy eggs. They're just soft-boiled eggs. It's funny how these things cycle back around or whatever. If I had said to some of these same people going, I'll have the jammy eggs a year ago. You want a soft-boiled egg? But now it's a jammy egg. I have no idea where they get the name. It sounds so silly.
Gary, you ever had a jammy egg? We have a guest here in studio. Gary?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
On the sailboat in Greece.
On the sailboat in Greece. Oh!
Okay, so he didn't just have a jammy egg. He had to throw the story of being on the sailboat in Greece in there.
I am... Okay, I'm going to go ahead and admit something. Gary's a guy who works here in the building that we know and love and adore him. Gary is who I want to be when I grow up. If I had not screwed my life up 30 years ago, I would be Gary now. That's who it is. Served his country. The guy's got adventures, like crazy adventures.
I think if we just had the discipline to have made it through the military life.
Intelligence, discipline, all of these things we lack, of course. But Gary's my idol around here. But recently spent some time on a sailboat in the Mediterranean, which is awesome. That is so cool. Sailboat. Was it a sailboat?
Yeah,
40
foot catamaran, but her husband is French, so they have those soft-boiled eggs and
Yeah.
the egg stand and the toast. So we had that few mornings.
See, that's what I told you. Put it on there, just scoop it out with that.
Clean eating, right?
So, his daughter, Martha's actually going to be on the air with us on Friday.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
We're
That's
talking
awesome.
about her app.
Yeah. So one of the best things Chef Patrick has made, and it's so simple, and I've seen him before, whatever, but he made them about a year ago, and that was the Scotch eggs, which are so wonderful.
They're one of my actually, it was even better. I think the Portuguese baked eggs was really good too.
That was amazing too. So the Scotch eggs are basically a hard-boiled egg in the center of...
Yeah, just under hard-boiled. Mm-hmm.
Okay, in the center or surrounded by a sausage.
Yeah, so you take like bulk ground sausage and you pat it out really flat.
You start with a hard-boiled egg. It's already cooked.
Exactly, already cooked. And then you wrap the sausage around it like a casing, about a quarter of an inch thick.
Yeah.
1/8 to a quarter.
That gets rolled in a breadcrumb or is it a panko?
Yeah, so I go flour, then egg wash, then panko breadcrumbs that are seasoned.
Okay. And then do you cook
it gets fried.
You fry the outside of that to crisp that,
it gets fried.
and then it gets baked to cook the sausage, right?
Well, I actually just, for a little bit. But if you fry it long enough, it'll cook. I always throw it in the oven for like an extra 5 or 6 minutes because
it'll be most of the way
nice
through then. Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But really simple, right? It is such a wonderful application on the plate. It looks so upscale, right? And the crispy outside with the planko, and then you got the sausage. You need a different type of sausage or whatever. But Patrick served it, so he sliced it in half like this, and you serve it open so you could see the egg inside. And then, did you just have a brown mustard sauce? I think we had.
Yeah, I just had plain whole grain brown mustard, and then I had a spicy mustard as well.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. And think about it. You got protein there. It's not a lot of fat. I mean, the sausage could be or whatever.
And what's nice, excuse me, I also had a German mustard that has it's got the hot, it's the Chinese hot mustard style that has a little bit of horseradish in there, but it's not like Creole mustard. It's really like clean your sinus, potent. Really,
love it.
Yeah, it's like wasabi.
And then real quick, since you mentioned it, we'll talk about the Portuguese eggs.
Oh man, so that one
this is so damn good.
You kind of make this vegetarian stew. It's tomato based. So you take whole tomatoes, bell peppers, red ones, red, yellow, green, lots of onion, and some herbs, and you kind of saute this down. You put a little bit of water just to start it.
It's very tomatoey too.
It's very tomatoey, and it's a lot of, and you just use whole tomatoes, but you let that cook down and stew for like an hour and a half, and then you let it cool, and then I took thick bread and toasted it. So I used kind of a whole wheat, really hearty French country bread. And then you line the baking dish with the bread, and then you ladle the sauce over that.
Over the bread.
Toasted. Yes. And then there's cheese that goes in there. And then you make a little well on top of each piece of toast, and you put your egg on there, and then you bake that until the egg is, the white's cooked and the yolk is still soft. And then you pull that out and you scoop out one piece of bread with all that stuff on top. It's delicious.
And what is the quote? The sum is greater than the whole of the parts or the total of the parts.
Yes, that is
absolutely This is absolutely true in this dish. Fantastic. In fact, I don't know if it's supposed to be that way. It probably is. The way you did it was perfect because the the onions and peppers broke down a lot. There was still some texture to them, but it wasn't like the onions and peppers you get on like a sausage sandwich at a park or something like that. They were really cooked down, and the flavor just popped. And then you used a pretty good quality cheese on that. Do you remember what you used? It was a white cheese.
I don't remember. I think I used two.
What's the one with the P?
There's a little. There was a Pecorino Romano, but I think I also might have put some grated, really nice white cheddar in there.
Okay. And it was fantastic.
Oh, there's a little ricotta that goes down in each of the,
that's right.
wells.
That's right. In the
egg.
hole before you put the egg in. That's right. Sensational dish. Very classy.
Awesome.
You know what I would...
Super simple and very inexpensive.
I would suggest if you're looking for a dish for like a holiday morning when people come over, you're hosting for brunch.
Yep.
Yeah, you can do a lot of it ahead of time, so the prep. So you're pretty much just baking the next day. But I would say if you can, serve them in individual dishes because it's difficult to get them out and make them look pretty.
If you really take your time to make a well on top of each one and did it exactly right, maybe put a little more sauce than I did, a little thicker. But you're right, it's a little difficult to.
So if you have the individual little cookware that you could put it in, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, like a little like the straight-sided glass bowls, like the ones everybody had for years and years and years, ceramic bowls.
Does it make sense to brush the bread as you put it down with like an olive oil or something to keep it from getting soggy, or you do want it a little bit soggy?
What I would think, actually, you touched on a good point. You can do a lot of the cooking ahead of time. You can make the sauce definitely ahead of time. You could actually cook the toast the night before and then let it kind of dry out. You could actually put it in the pan if you wanted to, just leave it on the counter. And then I think that would really, really make a big difference.
Awesome.
It's going to be super dry when you put the lid
and
of the
again,
sauce
that's
over.
Portuguese
baked eggs.
Baked eggs. You can probably look it up and find it. I stumbled across it and it being better than I even realized. All right.
Awesome.
All right. Now, moving on. Today is the 100th anniversary from the beginning, the start of Prohibition. 100 years ago today. Chef Patrick is going to touch on something about some other food laws and rules and bans and other things coming up. But he made an amazing point to me, and I think this should be one of our causes down the road, Chef Patrick, as we use this platform. That's definitely one of our causes. That we should try to be, we've always been people, we want to help people, we want to empower people, we want to do what we can. This is who we are, naturally. And we'll help people in a lot of different ways. But moving forward, I really want to help people have the freedom to consume what they want. This is important for me. There was a story, I want to say I did the story or talked about it in the air at least 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. It was about a farm somewhere in the Midwest. Farmer and his family, big farm, dairy farm, going about their business, living their life. And one night, in the middle of the night, the farmer hears something. What is that outside? If you've not lived in the country, I'm talking the country where it's dark, where there's no street lights for miles. Dark. And you're out on a farm like that, you feel very vulnerable. It's a different type of vulnerable. While you know you're away from a lot of different people, you're out there kind of, in a sea, isolated. And it's very odd, quiet. And he hears something, and he gets up, and then all hell breaks loose. There were people all over the place, and helicopters, and cop cars, and federal agents on his property. And they raided his family farm because he was, are you ready for the contraband? This dairy farm, are you ready? He was selling raw milk. Federal agents raided his property. We're talking people rappelling off the barn, agents, snipers. I'm not kidding.
We're talking another thing like the Waco experience. Huh?
It was really like that. It was, and fortunately, no one was hurt, but all because of raw milk. Now, I bring that up, and Chef Patrick's going to do a little more on this today, or talk about it a little more. It's the 100th anniversary of Prohibition, and it doesn't matter your politics; it's irrelevant. I think most people recognize the failure of Prohibition. Yet, for decades and decades and decades, we've had prohibition against things like marijuana. Those laws are finally changing, which is good because that's about your choice. But at the same time that alcohol is prolific, you can get alcohol everywhere. So many different types. It's becoming more and more common right? It's just a part of our lives, and alcohol and beer commercials and home brewers and whatever, and that's wonderful. And at the same time, we're decriminalizing marijuana, and that's wonderful. At the same time we're doing that, certain foods are becoming criminalized. I'm not talking ones that they deem unhealthy, like trans fats and such. I'm talking raw milk, because they're afraid, I guess, that some people will consume it and get some sort of disease, a bacteria, because they didn't properly, acquire the milk. They didn't clean the cow. You got to clean those udders. You got to clean those things off. That's just crazy. So Chef Patrick's going to touch on that a little bit more. Prohibition was around for the better part of 10 years throughout the Roaring 20s. It helped make the Roaring 20s roar. And almost immediately after, with the repeal of it, Americans learned that lesson. But they sadly only learned it about alcohol. Let's apply those historical lessons to everything else. Also want to remind you about Riduzone. If you are fighting the bulge, you're getting fat, you want to lose weight, do it simply with Riduzone. It's very, very easy. Riduzone is brand new tech, developed in the University of California system. Scientists and researchers got there and for years had worked on this. They stumbled across something called OEA that your body makes anyways. It's found naturally in the Mediterranean diet and olive oil and stuff like this. And they said, wait a minute. This molecule, we've determined, does have some effects on your appetite and on your metabolism. And they said, well, what if you had it in concentrated amounts or a lot of it? They said, what, are you going to drink like 16, 55-gallon drums of olive oil? Good luck with that. So they said, how can we refine and take it down into pill form, essentially? So you get a concentrated hit of it. What would it do? And they did it. And they researched it and said, it promotes weight loss. It gives you a naturally fuller feeling, and it boosts your metabolism. 2 ways to help you lose weight. Bottom line, Riduzone works. The folks at Riduzone got the patent, got all the tech information, and took it to market. And that was only about a year or so ago. Now they're applying that to Riduzone for dogs and animals and stuff. It works. Bottom line, if you're trying to lose weight now, just look up riduzone.com. RIDU zone.com. You ready? You're going to drink throughout the program, and it's the anniversary of Prohibition.
Did you have to ask that?
I know, right? Do we know when
you're holding my favorite bottle of bourbon, by the way?
Is this Basil Hayden? Is that your favorite?
That is my favorite.
Basil Hayden is sensational.
There are some. I thought you were going to drink right out of the bottle.
I'm thinking about it.
That's okay. We don't have to worry about washing the udder on that one. The germs come out dead.
Earlier today, I had the Baker's, which is good too. What I like about the Baker's, which is Kentucky straight bourbon, is it has a great flavor on the back end, not just hot. Basil Hayden does as well. It's good stuff, whatever. All right, Chef Patrick Mosher coming up next on this Spoony.com.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun. We're Spoony.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. A bombing in Syria has killed some American troops. Here's correspondent Sagar Magani.
The military says the troops were on a routine patrol in Manbij when a bomb went off nearby. It is not saying how many troops were killed. The attack comes weeks after President Trump caught aides and allies off guard by announcing the U.S. will pull out of Syria. Islamic State militants are claiming responsibility for the attack, and while that could not be independently verified, it calls into question the president's claim that the militants have been defeated in Syria, something Vice President Mike Pence repeated shortly after the bombing.
The caliphate has crumbled.
Pence defended the move to pull out, though critics say it's premature. Sagar Magani at the White House.
Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has entered the growing field of 2020 Democratic presidential contenders. At an event today in Troy, New York, she laid out some of her priorities.
You have to be able to take on institutional racism, which hold far too many communities back. You have to be willing to take on the drug companies if you want lower prescription drug prices. You have to be willing to take on the insurance companies if you want health care as a right and not a privilege.
The 52-year-old New York Democrat becomes one of an expected dozen or so Democrats to enter the race. The nation's capital today really is full of fake news.
It is literally fake news. Someone distributing phony copies of the Washington Post at several locations throughout Washington with the headline "Unprecedented" and claiming the president's been removed from office and the government shutdown is over. The front page looks real enough that the Post has issued a statement saying it's aware of the situation and denying they are Post products. The phony papers have been distributed near the White House, Union Station, and at several other locations.
That's correspondent Wally Hines on Capitol Hill. On Wall Street right now, the Dow is up 179 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Dating today with all the crazies out there has to be nuts.
Yes, it really would. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place you could go to find people who think like you do?
Like me, like libertarians and conservatives?
Right?
There is. We the people.
Amazing. What a genius idea. This is a site that you can go to if you're single and you are looking for somebody who you know you're going to think the same way, as for from a political freedom standpoint. If you want to date the right person for you, you'll find them in one place. WeThePeople.dating.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American made and serve those who serve us, our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual.
All things food service, recipes, and restaurants. Spoony.
Hey folks, this is Chef Patrick Mosher, better known as the Food Biz Pro, here on Spoony Radio. We have shows regarding food, food culture, the restaurant business, consulting services for businesses, startups of all sorts, not just the restaurant industry. We talk about travel, food destinations. It's a lot of food, fun, and family. Mike from the World's Food Championships will be coming on, giving us a weekly update on Saturday afternoons on what's new in the world of food sport. Yes, folks, I said food sport. No, it's not where competitors walk into Kitchen Stadium and beat each other to death with a limp fish. It's where you have 2,000 events which lead to the World Food Championships. Join us for the World Food Championship updates every week. Join us on Spoony on the Dash Radio Network, 24/7 Food Talk Radio.
We're not solving all the world's problems, but we're bringing people to the This show and more is available on demand at Spoony.com.
Good afternoon, Spoony listeners. Chef Patrick Mosher here, the Food Biz Pro, and it's not even Beer for Breakfast Friday, but I think it's time for a drink. It's time for a drink. I'm not even sure it's time for a drink yet. Let's talk about some other more fun stuff first. Before I start slurring my words, not really, guys, we have some really fun and interesting shows coming up. We have a show on that's current. It's called No Butts Too Big with Elisa Shakespeare. Elisa's going to have her show going daily in a couple more weeks. They're building their new home office with a studio for her to record in, so you can look forward to hearing her every day. We have a local celebrity, Trey Chapman. Trey Chapman's going to be doing Trey's Chowdown live from the Spoony studio. He'll be hosting local and regional chefs that'll come in and do some demonstrations, bring in some props, have some fun, and just some general chowdown. It's going to be really fun. I can't wait for that show to launch. Oh, we have some other guys coming in. Oh, man, Rob Carson is going to be one of the most fun guys we have on here. This guy is his take on food, his videos that he has out there. If you can look up Rob Carson food videos. He's got 100 videos posted, and he's just really fun to listen to. He's an old time radio guy. He's bringing fun back to the kitchen, basically. And then, of course, my show after, this next week, I believe, the 4th of February. My show's going to go to 2 hours. Producer Ron, well, that's provided we have a producer here to run the show for me. I will be going to 2 hours after
the 4th or starting on the 4th of February. So all of that aside, I talked about some ridiculousness in the news regarding the banning of something that someone owns that they can no longer consume. There's an effort for this in a particular state in the Southeast that we're going to get into in a minute. But it made me think about all these ridiculous food laws and beverage laws that we have in some other states. Now, I've been through some of this list in the past, a couple of years ago. Probably most didn't hear it. We'll go through some of the most ridiculous ones, and we'll go state by state on these. I'm not going to do every state, but we're going to start with Alaska. Yeah, let's start with Alabama. So in Alabama, for some reason, I don't know who thought this up, but for some reason, it's illegal to have an ice cream cone in your back pocket. Illegal to have an ice cream cone in your back pocket. Now, was that some angry mother who was disappointed in her child for the 20th time when they let their ice cream cone melt in their back pocket and didn't want to wash the jeans one more time with that sticky mess in the back pocket? And they initiated some state law to ban that? What is who in the world dreamt that up? I mean, it's bad enough that somebody decided to eat. I've talked about these foods in the past that would kill you if you didn't prepare them properly. So you have to try it 50 or 60 different times and watch all your friends and family die before you figure out how to cook it. But this is even more asinine. You can't have an ice cream cone in your back pocket in the state of Alabama. Now, I'm sure they probably don't enforce that law anymore, but the fact that it's on the books is stupid. Now, I'm sure there is some reasonably hilarious story or maybe tragic story on why this next law exists. But in Alaska, in the city of Fairbanks, feeding alcohol or any alcoholic beverage to a moose is a very serious offense. And to be honest with you, I think a moose is already dangerous. So a moose on liquor, I don't think you want to meet him in a dark alley. All right. Arizona, this isn't really a bizarre food law. I think this is reasonable. I lived in Arizona for a long time. It's a very, very hot state in the summertime, but it is against the law for you to refuse when someone asks for a glass of water. Whether you're a restaurant, a private home, or whatever, you have to give them a glass of water. If you asked me at my home, if you have a glass of water, I'd say drink out of the hose, or simply disconnect the hose and drink right out of the faucet. Just be sure you run the hot water out first, because after that's been baking in the sun, it's going to be hot for a while. Arkansas, yeah, that's fine. So no honking in front of a deli after 9 p.m. Carmel, California used to have a strange law that you couldn't eat ice cream on the sidewalks, standing up. You had to be sitting down. Now, I don't know if that's because you would bump into people, and they have a lot of very wealthy, both residents and visitors there. But I know Clint Eastwood did away with that law in the 80s, like 87 or something. Now, Colorado, this is probably a fairly prudent law, at least prior to the polls closing. But in Colorado, it's illegal you can't sell any alcoholic beverages on voting day. I think that's fairly reasonable, at least leading up to the polls closing. In Connecticut, I don't know if this is really a law, but the way that they define the difference between a pickle and a cucumber is that a pickle must bounce. Well, I suppose cucumbers don't really bounce. They probably kind of splatter and stick. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why it needs that definition. I would just think if it were cured, salted with either salt or vinegar, or pickled, right, cured, then it should qualify as a pickle. In Delaware, there's not enough people in Delaware to talk about it. Sorry. And it's just one town in Fenwick. Okay, this is kind of bizarre, and I need to look up the history behind this law. In the state of Florida, you are not allowed to break more than 3 dishes per day or chip the edges of more than 4 cups or saucers, according to the law regarding clumsy dishwashing. Now, I'm thinking this was probably a way that we have the differences between right to work and labor states, union states. And in a right to work state, of course, the employer can fire you for no cause, right? Just they need to downsize for whatever reason, they can let you go. Unless it's discrimination. That's not fair. So, but in this case, I want to say it was more than likely that it was probably impossible. And I'll look this up, but it was probably impossible to fire someone who worked for a union that was a dishwasher, regardless of their terrible performance. So they had to incorporate or initiate some sort of guideline by which they'd have just cause to fire someone. I'm not positive, but I can't imagine any other reason why that law would exist. Because look, the plate manufacturers, the China and glassware manufacturers, they certainly didn't put that law into effect because they want you to break as many as possible. I don't understand that. And that's not because you're clumsy. I would think that's that law, right? That law probably exists due to the profitability that's lost because you can't use chip plateware. A lot of restaurants do, but those cracks and those missing pieces can harbor bacteria. So if you own a restaurant and you have cracked glasses or you have any chip plateware, things like that, you have to dispose of them. Well, a lot of them don't, but by law you have to. So in Georgia, okay, we'll talk about happy hour stuff later. That's kind of a separate topic because there are 8 states that have actually banned happy hour. We're going to talk about that. The history of happy hour, this whole thing about prohibition, and the whole thing about the history of prohibition, and why we're going to drink a little on the show today, and then the 8 states that have banned happy hour. In Hawaii, you can. So in Hawaii, you cannot have more than one alcoholic drink in front of you at any time. So if you order, you can't order 2, drink 1, and have the other one waiting. You can only order 1 at a time. I don't think that's a bad habit. I mean, I don't think that they should be able to arrest you or cite you, give you a citation for ordering more than 1 at a time or having 2 in front of you. That doesn't really seem very logical. But, a lot of state laws aren't logical. They're about money. And I'm sure that this one, maybe as positive as they thought it would be, or, in good faith, whatever the reasoning was, I think it's silly. So, all right. Apparently in Idaho, it's illegal for a man to give your sweetheart a box of candy weighing less than 50 pounds. Okay, now that's the most ridiculous lie I've heard of so far. That you can't give your sweetheart on Valentine's Day, or anytime, a box of candy weighing less than 50 pounds. Well, you basically just killed your market right there. That means no one's going to buy any chocolate in the state. How could the chocolate manufacturers, chocolatiers and candy manufacturers, how could they allow that law to still exist? I'm surprised that they have not petitioned. Now, maybe Idaho has a very small population, and maybe that's it. So maybe their sales weren't truly affected in that manner, but that's ridiculous. All right. Okay, this is kind of funny. I'm going to assume, I'm not even going to assume, I don't know why this law exists, but in Chicago, you may not eat in a place that is on fire. Now, if you do want to eat in a place that's on fire, I'm not sure we should stop you. I mean, that's kind of, I know it's rude of me to say, but isn't that kind of the thinning of the herd mentality, right? If you want to eat in a place that's on fire, you can't just sit there and eat in a place that's on fire. I guarantee you won't sit there very long. Yeah, I don't see, that's just a ridiculous law. If you want to do that, I mean, A, that's ridiculous, and B, the law is even more ridiculous. Nope. So in Indiana, if you've eaten garlic in the last 4 hours, you're not allowed to go to a movie theater or ride in a public streetcar. Apparently, they're very sensitive about bad breath there, so oral hygiene is king. All right. In Iowa, they banished the ice. That's right. They banished the ice cream man. So, and the trucks. I don't remember when I remember reading this before. So this was a while back. I don't think it's recent, but they banished ice cream trucks. Now, I don't know if they had some sort of criminal activity that happened or something like that, or maybe there was something more nefarious. I mean, but why would you ban the ice cream truck? It makes no sense. Okay, Kansas, that's just stupid. That they banned you from hitting a vending machine that steals your money. Kentucky. If you don't like what a public speaker has to say in Kentucky, try to contain yourself. Throwing eggs at them could lead to a fine and or land you in prison for up to a year. Not many people throw eggs at politicians anymore. Oh, this is kind of good. I like this. Is interesting. So trying to play a prank on your friend by ordering surprise pizzas to be delivered to their house in Louisiana could get you a fine of up to $500. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's very funny when food shows up at my door and I have to pay for it. But if you want to order me a surprise pizza, you can send it to 6125 Airport Freeway, Suite 201 in Haltom City, 201B in Haltom City, Texas, 76117. That's right here at the Spoony Studios. Feel free to send a pizza over here as long as you pay for it before it comes. But yeah, I don't think that's stupid. I mean, that's I would imagine that was enacted by the pizza delivery services, the companies that do deliver, because they lose money. The person who's receiving the pizza doesn't have to pay for it because they didn't order it. It's just kind of a big fiasco, and what a waste of time. Maine. That's Maine. It's Dunkin' Donuts. No. Oh, you know what? This is interesting. So you can't eat while you're in the ocean in Maryland. So while you're swimming in the ocean, you cannot eat. I wonder if that's because, well, I know why it is. It's the additional trash that would be left in the waters. At first I was thinking maybe you're going to attract a less than friendly fish. Yeah, it's got to be the trash. I don't think it's going to, I don't think that blue popsicles really would attract a great white shark or something like that. All right, in Massachusetts, residents should try not to eat their feelings due to a law that prohibits mourners from eating more than 3 sandwiches at a wake. So you can't eat more than 3 sandwiches at a wake in the state of Massachusetts. Well, as an Irish guy, I'd eat more than 3 sandwiches at a wake, and I could see how that could be a problem. Maybe they ran out of food one time. I don't know. It's just stupid. Who the hell thinks this stuff up? Who thinks this stuff up? Yeah, Michigan, Duncan Disorderly, Minnesota. I do know some obscure laws that some of these are just getting stupid. Really, like you can't eat hamburgers on Sundays. St. Cloud, Minnesota residents have an odd law in the books that makes it illegal to eat a hamburger on a Sunday. Now you're just pissing me off. Why you can't eat a hamburger on Sunday? Who would think that up? I mean, that's like against the American dream. I'm not even talking about prohibition yet. Now you want to make me have a drink. By the way, Doc and I were just talking about this is my favorite, gifted to me by a friend, my favorite bourbon, Basil Hayden. Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It is very good, 40% by alcohol. It is distilled and bottled in Kentucky Springs Distilling Company in Claremont. That's Frankfort, Kentucky. Really, really good stuff. All right, we're going to have just a little touch here because it is the 100th anniversary of the enactment of Prohibition. So, just to say, poking those in the eye, those dead forefathers of ours that put this law into that enacted this law. Cheers to you, little Kentucky bourbon on your behalf. So, I don't know if this is the case anymore, but when I lived in Denver, there was a law, at least I was told there was a law. I'll look this up in Colorado. I believe that you could, even though alcohol, I think they stopped serving at 1 in Colorado. It's 1 or 2. But anyway, after serving, you could continue, after the serving hours were done, you could continue serving to patrons that were currently in the facility, but you had to lock the doors and not let any other patrons in, and you could not charge for the alcohol. Now, they could you could give tips, but you couldn't sell the alcohol. So what would happen is they would simply recommend a tip per drink, so to speak, so that the cost of the alcohol was covered in the tip, and then the server made their money on top of that. But I remember distinctly going to many places up there that would stay open after hours, and it would serve all night long. Now, in New York, I think in New York City, you can't have alcohol until 10 o'clock on Sundays, which isn't really a big deal. Most states are that way. I know Texas, you can't have alcohol until 10 o'clock on Sundays. I think you cannot I think you can't buy alcohol. I know in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that you can't buy alcohol until 7 a.m. on a weekday. But in New York, typically, if you're in a bar, that other than Sunday mornings, the bars they have to close for a minimum of 2 hours. So I think they stop serving at 4. but then you, and this is just New York City, by the way, but they can reopen at 6. So they have a 2-hour period where they have to lock their doors. I guess they do their cleanup, they count the cash, reissue the bank, make their deposit. That's just about time to do all those things, and then you reopen the doors. So just about the time you finish your nap from passing out on the counter, between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock, they should, they unlock the door, open it, ring the bell, and you're right back to drinking. So I guess you could just rent a spot at the bar for 2 hours, and as long as you're not consuming, it's okay. Now there are 8 states, right? 8 states that have banned happy hour. And there are a lot of other states where you can't advertise happy hour, like Arkansas. In Arkansas, at least in Northwest Arkansas, you can't advertise happy hour on social media, in newspapers, on the internet. You're not allowed to advertise it at all. But you can advertise it at the restaurant or bar. I wondered why that was. And I think the reason is, I know that you cannot give away alcohol in the state of Arkansas. So if you're going to you can sample things. You can give away a tasting, but you can't give away like a full portion. So when you do a 2-for-1 drink and you advertise that, you're basically saying that you're giving one for free when you buy one. And there are other states like that. But I know that you can't advertise it. So you may have the best happy hour in the world, but it's either got to spread word of mouth, or you have to advertise it in a really bold way. You're actually not even supposed to have a sign like out by the street or in front of the establishment that really advertises that. But people do it all the time. I mean, I think it's probably an antiquated law that's going to come off the books pretty soon. But these 8 states have banned happy hour altogether. And, I thought about why, right? And I think it's more than likely these states, at least the states where they've banned it, they've said it's to kind of limit the amount of binge drinking, which I understand. Binge drinking has become a problem. It's actually more prevalent in youth, or at least it was until a few years ago, than it had been in the past, and among adults also. But if you happy hours banned, so Massachusetts is one. I had no idea. Massachusetts. So these 8 states: Massachusetts, Alaska, Indiana, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Utah, and Vermont. They've banned it completely. So this includes prohibiting offering free or discounted drinks, unlimited drinks, drinks as a prize or as any type of promotion, advertising the prices of drinks, or offering more than 2 drinks to an individual at a given time. Exact restriction. Okay, so other states also have these in some way, shape, or form. Many of the other states do. So the reasoning that these states have banned happy hour, or at least in theory, for the most part, they say it's to discourage binge drinking, right? And I really think that's a valid reason. I'll be honest, if there's a happy hour, I would probably tend to, in the past, not so much now, I would have probably drank more during happy hour than I would have if I had not been paying happy hour prices, because they're discounted, or it's 2-for-1 or whatever it is. And, also during happy hour, people tend to go for the higher alcohol drinks. You sell a lot more mixed drinks or liquor-based drinks during happy hour than you do during the regular, period of the service period, when it's priced at regular prices. So the 2-for-1 is the big one. So when I lived in Arizona in the 80s and part of the 90s, there was a time where right after work, I would go and it was happy hour. Now I had an ID that was not legit, and so I think starting at 18 or so, I could actually buy alcohol. We're not going to talk about how I did that. Well, they don't make that license anymore anyway, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, I would go with friends who, because if I was just a year older, I would have made the cutoff to be able to make the legal drinking age of 18, but the law had changed the year before I turned 18, so I had to be 21. Anyway, I definitely drank more during happy hour, and I also drank more liquor. I'm not a big, I know you see the bourbon sitting here or you're listening to me drink the bourbon, but I really don't drink a lot of hard alcohol. I mostly drink beer, and then I drink wine. I love wine. It's just the price per ounce is a little bit lower typically when I buy beer. So, and I love trying new beers. I think it's a lot more affordable to try a wide variety of these small batch, limited production, regionally available beers than it is to do that with wine. Now, if you want to prove me wrong and send me bottles in, again, you have the address 6125 Airport Freeway, Haltom City, Texas. It's Suite 201B, and that's 71667. So feel free, again, or 76117, 76117. I really don't want you to send me alcohol. Anyway, I think it's easier to try more. It's less expensive. It's not easier when the price point is lower. You know, and a bottle of beer, a can of beer is definitely less than a bottle of wine. And if you don't like it, you don't have to drink the whole bottle, right? So if you can actually often get a taste of beers that are available or that are brewed in a like a specific restaurant. Oh, matter of fact, I want to try next week. It's kind of a crazy schedule next week, but the following week, I'm going to try to get someone in here from Cowtown Brewery. If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you haven't been there yet, Cowtown Brewery is fantastic. They have some of the best barbecue I've ever had. They do their brisket right where they cut it thick. I mean, it's almost a half-inch thick, so there's a good meaty texture to it. It doesn't fall apart. It doesn't dry out when between the time it leaves the kitchen and gets to your table. A lot of times, it's so dry that it just falls apart when you try to pick it up with a fork. It really is some of the best barbecue I've had. And on top of that, they have 7 or 8 styles, typically German styles of beer that they serve, and there's always something in rotation. They also had a tasting recently I didn't go to, but it was a beer and donuts tasting. I want to say they had five donuts, five beers. It was a 5-course tasting. It was, I think, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, but I wasn't able to make it. But that's Cowtown Brewery right here in Fort Worth, Texas. It is amazing. One of my favorite experiences so far in dining in this area. All right, so back to the program. Now that I had all that extra food and beverage over the holidays, I'm feeling a little bit of that Christmas bloat. So we have a new sponsor, and this half hour was brought to you by Atrantil. Atrantil is a very useful enzymatic supplement that's good for bloating, abdominal discomfort, and, well, if your habits change, it's good for that. It's actually a whole bunch of phytonutrients that they load your body up with. It's more of a prebiotic than a probiotic. It creates the optimum environment for those probiotics to do their business down there. Anyway, Atrantil, it's working. I'm telling you, I've lost a few pounds already. I've only been on it a week. I'm feeling much better, and I really, you know what? I used to have all sorts of stuff with this kind of esophageal pain. I don't have that anymore. Anyway, Atrantil. All right, come back for the next half hour. I'm going to talk more about happy hour, have a little more bourbon, and I've got some other stupid laws that we're going to help you advocate against. Chef Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro. I'll be right back.
Follow Chef Patrick Mosher on Twitter at Food Biz Pro.
Dating today with all the crazies out there has to be nuts.
Yes, it really would. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place you could go to find people who think like you do?
Like me, like libertarians and conservatives?
Right?
There is. WeThePeople.dating.
Amazing. What a genius idea. This is a site that you can go to if you're single and you are looking for somebody who you're going to think the same way, as for from a political freedom standpoint. If you want to date the right person for you, you'll find them in one place. WeThePeople.dating.
Take the pain out of ordering your diabetic testing supplies with Diathrive. Diathrive ships the testing supplies you need directly to you when you need them. Best of all, with plans starting as low as $8 a month, Diathrive is probably going to cost you less than what you're paying today. Diathrive is so convinced that you'll love their service, they're offering your first month of supplies free. Simply type the code DOC, D-O-C, at checkout. Diathrive.com. That's D-I-A, thrive.com.
It looks like you're losing.
I am.
Are you losing weight?
I am losing. I've lost about 10 pounds.
How are you doing it?
It's a funny name, but I've done it with Riduzone, RIDUzone.com, and the stuff works. It's, you get into all that, the molecule this and the found in that. All I can tell you is it makes you feel full, and it keeps your mind off of wanting to overeat.
And also boosts your metabolism, so you're burning more.
Yeah,
Try it today. It's going to work for you like it's worked for Brad and countless other people. Riduzone.com. RIDUzone.com.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
Food, culture, and fun. Spoony.
Hey, welcome back, Spoony listeners. All right, so we've had the Crips and the Bloods. We had the gangs from the Warriors, right? The gangs from let's see, who are the gangs from? The Sharks and the the Sharks, right? And the Jets, the Jets and the Sharks, right? From West Side Story. But you ever heard about the Wets and the Dries? You ever heard that one? The Wets and the Dries? No? All right, so we're going to give you a little history of happy hour in the United States. Happy hour started originally, had nothing to do with alcohol, right? Nothing to do with alcohol whatsoever. It had to do with entertainment, believe it or not. And happy hour was actually, it was shipboard. All right, so in the Navy, they would have happy hour. So it was entertainment. The other sailors would get up and entertain the troops, and that's how happy hour started. It was a very, I'm sure, fun and engaging activity, and that carried on. I want to say that started in, let's see, it started, it's got to be like the late 1800s, all right? It's got to be. Now, it was appropriated by the drinking community or non-drinking as after 1920, when the 18th Amendment went into effect 100 years ago today, then we had the prohibition and manufacture, transportation, and sale of alcohol, also known as prohibition. Now, that campaign was driven by the Dries, or people who thought that alcohol was not acceptable for social consumption, personal consumption at all. And then we had the Wets, right? So the Wets were what we call the renegade drinkers. These were the moonshiners. These were the bad guys. These were the ones who just wanted to take the edge off on a Friday night, right? Those guys that wanted to pop a top, enjoy the evening, pull the cork. Oh, that didn't work very well. I can do it again. Oh, there we go. All right. So that still didn't work very well. All right. So one of those guys. So the Dries obviously got the amendment passed, and all heck broke loose, so to speak. Now, you couldn't drink at all, and especially not publicly. You couldn't have a restaurant that served alcohol. You can have a bar. So speakeasies started coming about. But happy hour then became something where it could be one of two things. It could be drinking at home, where people would gather to have a cocktail before they went out to eat, because you couldn't eat when you were out. So you'd have happy hour at the house. The other thing that was considered happy hour is you would go to a speakeasy. And if you don't know what a speakeasy is, it was a public establishment where they sold alcohol, but it was a secret venue. So you had to know where the location was. You had to know the password. And you could go, you could imbibe, you could partake in the alcohol consumption that was now banned. Now, as it moved forward and the 21st Amendment was ratified, I think that was about a week ago, about a week ago, was it 85 years ago? Something like that, 86 years ago. So in 1933, they repealed it, replaced it with the 18th Amendment, replaced it with the 21st Amendment, and you could drink again. So it was always a failure, right? This prohibition of alcohol in the United States. And Doc touched on this a little bit before. You know, you can't really tell people what they can or can't do, because they're going to do it anyway. Now, I'm not saying things that are dangerous. I'm not saying that you can't have regulations to inspect food sources, to monitor time, temperature, the amount of alcohol that you can have in a single drink. And you know, you don't want to have someone that can have, obviously, if it impairs your ability to function, which all alcohol does, by the way. But after one sip or one drink, it impairs you so badly that you can't function. normally by I guess normal societal standards, then of course I guess you could regulate the amount of alcohol to be put into one drink. Although Long Island iced teas are a lot of alcohol and no tea. But back to happy hour in the 1960s, and between kind of the 30s and 60s, happy hour became a social thing that was a way for bars to increase their revenue. Right, so speakeasies really didn't have to exist anymore, and let me tell you, speakeasy made a lot of money. This open, this open market that they had, this legal market for alcohol, became a black market in which I'm sure people had to pay 20 times the cost for alcohol, at least 10 times, there was not a lot of disposable income back then. I'm going to assume maybe it's the same ratios now, but even so, if it were 10 times the cost nowadays, because they reenacted prohibition, I wouldn't be drinking, or I would be producing, to be honest with you, because that's why a lot of billionaires are made, billionaire families. All right, so that aside, as we moved into the 60s, the Mad Men era, they wanted to, happy hour became a big thing again, drinking socially, entertaining at home, but happy hour then became a part of the bars. And there was a time when they needed to make more money, right? So I think it was around 1959-ish. There was a place, the Dover House, right? It's at the top of Restaurant Row on La Cienega. And that's in California. And from 4 to 6, they didn't actually, during their happy hour, they didn't reduce the prices, but they increased the size from 4 to 6 p.m. It served what it called a bird bath martini and Manhattan in big 6-ounce glasses. So this was a long time ago, right? This was back when cocktails were 50 cents each at happy hour. Or they might have been $1 back then. But so you got to think 6 ounce. So this whole thing didn't actually shock me. The fact that this started in the late 60s, early 70s, actually mid 60s, but that they increased the size to 6 ounces. So think about it. They increased the size to 6 ounces. How big do you think a regular martini glass is right now? Now I'm curious. Do you think, let's see, size of standard martini glass, Martini? All right. So I'm curious now. I'm going to say it's 4. Okay, 3 to 4 ounces. All right. Now, oversized cocktail glasses, which a lot of places use now. A lot of them use an oversized, not the standard martini glasses are pretty small, but the oversized cocktail glasses are typically 6 ounces. So that's interesting. They increased the size to something we now consider almost standard. I find that interesting. I have never thought about that before. Anyway, so that was one of the things they did. Some other places had cocktails for 50 cents during happy hour, 4 to 6, 3 to 6. Kutcher's Country Club, they had, let's see, from 6:15 to 7:15 p.m., they had happy hour. And they don't say what the discount was, but I believe that one was, that was 50 cents per cocktail. All right, so happy hour became somewhere to go to get, a drink at a discount, typically right after your working hours. A lot of times they would start the happy hour before work ended, right? Because most people get off at 5 o'clock. But I think they started this to capture that odd working shift, individual, right? So instead of working an 8 to 5, maybe you work second shift, or maybe you just work third shift. All right. So you work third shift. You get up around, so maybe you worked 11 to 7. You go home, you sleep like 8 or 9 to, mid-afternoon. You get up, you have your lunch or dinner, you make your food, you get ready to go to work or whatever. Or for those people that are just simply have a weekday off, and you want to start that, you're trying to capture a crowd early. But now happy hour is everywhere. I can't think of hardly any bars or restaurants, hardly any, that don't have a happy hour. I mean, there are so few that I can even think of. I can't think of any. Even, I'm thinking of Eddie V's. I'm thinking of all the other large chain restaurants. I know that they used to have a happy hour at the Chart House restaurants. I can't think of any that don't have a happy hour. It's become that prevalent. And it's interesting. The states where they banned happy hour, the bars and restaurants that were serving alcohol actually made a lot of money. They didn't have to compete, right? They and the liquor stores, they made more money because if the restaurants didn't have to lower the price of alcohol, neither did the liquor stores or corner stores that could sell alcohol as well. So now you have this non-competition, right? They didn't have to compete. So the restaurants and bars were still making decent money because they didn't have to lower their pricing. And then also in contrast, the liquor stores didn't have to lower their pricing to compete, so they made more money on margin. So I find that very interesting. So back to the story about the banning of alcohol. Now, that one's bad enough, right? This is something I understand. We banned it. We thought it was a public nuisance. It was dangerous. Consumption could lead to you, driving off a cliff or causing accidents or being unable to perform at whatever you're doing. And who knows what all the reasons were. Maybe they're just crazy. They just want to ban alcohol. But this next story, which I talked about a couple of days ago, I don't understand how this was allowed to happen. So in Tennessee, I talked about the other day that there's a lawmaker there who wants to make it criminal. He wants to criminalize the drinking of fresh milk. Okay, so let's talk about this now. Fresh milk or unpasteurized milk, right? Unpasteurized milk is illegal in many states. There's dangers with bacteria, could be contaminated. It's not pasteurized, so it doesn't go through that heating process to kill the bacteria. But that's not what they're talking about. Now, if that were the case, would I be, would I still be upset? Maybe a little. But in this case, they're talking about criminalizing the drinking of fresh milk from your own cow, goat, or sheep. I mean, I tied this to the whole lettuce contaminant, and they're talking about the reason that they say that they need to ban this, that this gentleman, this lawmaker, I'm going to give his name here in a second, who's a medical doctor, right? He's a state senator, Richard Briggs. He wants to make it illegal to drink fresh milk from your own animal. All right. Now, if this were for public consumption and you're selling it, I get it. If there's an outbreak, now there's a cost to consumers. But if you're drinking it on your own property from your own animal and you get sick, so there's an E. coli or some other contaminant in there, well, then you foot the bill. You have to go to the hospital. You foot the bill. Now, I don't know if they believe that there's a contamination factor that could occur, because E. coli is a pretty nasty thing. So maybe you'll spread that. That's a possibility. But here's the thing. It's not like you're trying to drink the milk for free and not have to buy the cow. You've already bought the damn cow. You bought the cow. All right? You should get to drink the milk. Right? It's ridiculous. And then, so what are they going to do? If I want to raise lettuce, then an E. coli breakout in romaine lettuce. So now can I not eat lettuce I grow myself? Personal consumption is personal responsibility. Right? That's all there is to it. Personal consumption, personal responsibility. And if I get sick, I pay the cost of that. And I don't foresee the possibility, of course, I could be wrong here. I do foresee the possibility of things spreading. If a child gets sick, it goes to school. Okay, now they don't wash their hands. It gets spread. Yes, I've seen it, and I have seen this. I've seen some really nasty things. One time in one restaurant I ever worked in, I saw a foodborne illness breakout, and it was scary. It was frightening. We actually we almost shut the restaurant down temporarily, but we didn't. We got through it. But I just don't understand personal consumption, personal responsibility. If you own the cow, you can drink the milk. It's that simple. Again, and I know it sounds funny, but it's not like you're trying to drink the milk for free. You own the cow. You bought it already, right? You bought it. Why can't you drink the milk? So I'm going to find out. I'm going to look into the ties that this doctor, right, this state senator, Richard Briggs, may have to maybe a financial reasoning for this. Is he backed by the dairy farmers there? Is that a possibility? Do they think that maybe a personal consumption of dairy products that were produced on your own property, would that lead to the ability to sell raw milk on the open market there? Maybe. Is there a financial tie to it? There typically is. It's very rare that there's not. I'm curious now. I'm really curious. All right, so yeah, where does that stop? If they stop you from drinking milk, what else do they stop you with? What about eggs? Eggs is an even better example. How many people get sick from salmonella every year? I'll bet it's 20 to 50 fold, at least probably 100 fold the number of people, 100 times the number of people that get sick from E. coli. Maybe more. So if that's the case, then can you eat eggs from your own chickens? Because salmonella actually doesn't live in the egg. It doesn't live inside the shell. So salmonella exists on the skin of the chicken, and when the chicken passes the egg, it gets on the shell. So when you eat an egg and you say that you get sick from salmonella, I would bet you 99.9% of the time that's not true. 99.9% of the time you got ill or you became ill, you didn't wash your hands after you touched the egg. But we're not trying to ban people from raising chickens or eating farm fresh eggs. We're advocating for that. I'll bet there are states where you can get a supplement, a federal or a state, some sort of tax break or assistance to start raising your own chicken. I'd almost guarantee that. If you're in a state where that exists, go to Spoony Radio on Facebook and post that if you would. I'm going to look it up later, but I keep saying that, I do look it up. I don't always post it, but so then what? So you can't raise chickens now. You can't eat your own lettuce or vegetables you grow in the garden. You can't drink your own milk. I wonder if there's a retailer or a group of retailers behind this. If it's not the dairymen, is it the Retailers Association of America? I don't know, or that state. Interesting. There's always money behind it. There's always some sort of money motivation. All right, but now I talked about eggs. Doc was talking about a few things that I cooked in the past. I made Scotch eggs last year, and oh my God, Scotch eggs are one of my favorites. We'll walk through that recipe one more time in a minute, but these Portuguese baked eggs that I made, that's really something. I think if you have a restaurant, if you even have a food truck that has capability of possibly baking something to order, that's all. It's pre-made. You could even keep the sauce hot. You keep the toast pre-toasted. You could simply ladle the sauce over the toast. Put the grated pecorino romano or Parmesan if you want, and then put the ricotta. So here, let's go through the dish one more time in case you weren't listening to the last show. Portuguese baked eggs is basically a sauce made of diced tomatoes. Like you get all fresh tomatoes, a bunch of them, and you chunk them up, maybe about three pounds of tomatoes by chop them roughly. You take that. You take bell peppers, you core and julienne those, red, green, yellow, all three colors. About half the amount of the tomatoes that you put in it. Then you put in a lot of onion. So about the same amount of all the bell peppers combined. You take white or yellow onion, julienne it, and throw that in. Now you let that cook down, and there are some herbs that go in there too. I want to say there's oregano. There's oregano, some other herbs that go in. Oh, lots of basil. There's lots of basil. And so you cook this down, and it takes a while to cook. It really does. It takes probably about 45 minutes to an hour. All right, so bell peppers, onion, and the tomatoes I used were beefsteak tomatoes, not like Roma tomatoes. You want a lot of liquid in them. All right, and then, that's it, garlic. There's like 8 or 10 cloves of garlic sliced. So, and then jalapeno. You can take for say a pound of tomato, pound and a half of tomato, 3 bell peppers, and 1 onion. Then you need about 8 cloves of garlic and about 1 whole jalapeno. And the jalapeno, I actually left the seeds in, and then I just halved it lengthwise. All right, so you don't chop it up. You just cook it in the sauce. You remove those later. Then about a quarter cup of basil leaves. And the basil, I actually added in at the very last, because if you add it too early, the flavor cooks out. And then 2 tablespoons of fresh oregano leaves, and those go in about the last 10 or 15 minutes as well. 1.5 teaspoons of chili powder, a teaspoon of paprika, some kosher salt, and fresh ground black pepper. So You take the sauce and you cook it down until it's nice and everything starts to get really kind of soft and not mushy, but soft. The onions are fully cooked through. The bell peppers no longer have any kind of a bite or a crunch to them, and then you let the sauce cool a little bit. And then you take your toast. Yeah, I would take like a thick, crusty, like rustic, almost a dense French bread. Maybe you want something that's not elongated, right? Like a baguette. You want something like a boule, like a French country loaf, right? This big kind of round or elongated, slightly wider loaf of bread than you would have normally. And it's not in this dish, but I think if you used olive bread, that would add another layer of flavor to this. I think it would be delicious. Anyway, so you take that bread, cut it about 3/4 to an inch thick, and then you brush it with olive oil, or you can just toast it dry if you want, if you don't want the olive oil in there. But I brushed it with olive oil, and then I baked it off in the oven to toast it. If you want, you can use a toaster and just toast them off. Basically, then you line a baking dish with this, and you ladle the sauce over so that you have about maybe an inch of sauce over each piece of bread, maybe a little less than that. Now, after you ladle that over the bread, then you take about 1/4 cup of Parmesan and you sprinkle that over the sauce, and then about 1 cup of grated sharp white cheddar. I love white cheddar from Vermont and certain areas of upstate New York. It's by far my favorite. You could also use something like an Irish, like Kerrygold, a Kerrygold Dubliner, which is a white cheddar cheese that's a little drier. It's almost got a Parmesan texture to it. I mean, my leg is shaking here. I'm getting very hungry. I have to remember to eat before the show. So you sprinkle that over the top as well. About a cup of sharp white cheese or sharp white cheddar, and then you put you make kind of a well in the sauce in the middle of each piece of toast. It's kind of hard to see where the toast is after you put the sauce over the top, but you make a well in each one of those, and you put a little dollop of ricotta, and the ricotta is about 2 tablespoons or so, maybe a tablespoon or 2 of ricotta in there, and then you break an egg on top of each one of those, and you put salt and pepper over the eggs, and now you put the whole thing in an oven and you bake it, and you bake it just long enough for the egg white to be cooked through, but the yolk is soft. And then you pull it out and you discern where the edges of each piece of bread are, and then you serve 1 piece of bread with that sauce and the cheese and the egg on top. That's 1 serving. It's absolutely delicious. Now, I think the key to this is the bread can get really soggy, so I would actually toast it and let it dry out a little bit. Even more, if you're going to cook it the next morning, then I would reheat the sauce a little bit, allow the bread to dry in the pan overnight, just on the counter, and then put the sauce over it and bake it that way the next day. Doc had mentioned all these different egg dishes last hour, and it started me thinking. We had our guest in here, Gary. He's actually the part of the management of the building, and he was talking about being on a boat in Greece with his daughter for an extended period of time. And his daughter, Marta, she's going to be on the show on Friday. She has amazing app we're going to talk about for people with food allergies and how to find places with allergy-friendly menus, as well as to find places or flag restaurants that, if something happens, right? If you're gluten intolerant and you get something and you get ill, you can let people know, and then you can also let the ownership know. But it's also for people with odd types of food allergies like pepper, black pepper, or garlic, or things like that are a little bit less common. And I think it's phenomenal. It's a very good app, I think, in this day and age, especially when people have so many allergies. But these soft-boiled eggs, and I mean soft-boiled eggs. So in Germany, when I was going when I was there my senior year in high school, a little longer than that, but the family that I lived with, this wonderful family in Cologne, Germany, our meal periods consisted of dinner, it was kind of the main meal, but not the hot meal. Dinner was breads, cheeses, cured meats, and typically some sort of a caviar like paddlefish roe or lumpfish roe, pseudo caviar. There would be different spreads, herbed cheeses, usually some kind of stinkkäse or stinky cheese, soft typically, and 3 or 4 types of breads, typically 2 breads. Like there would be a dense, like what they call health bread in German, I think. Well, there's different varieties, but it's a bread that's it's kind of a brick. It's about the shape of and size of a brick, but it's sliced very thin. It's like 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's very dense. And they have a couple. There's a sport bread, and there's like whole grain bread, and there are 2 or 3 different varieties of this. And I can't remember the company that makes it right now, but you take that bread and you know, if that's the one that you put like a spreaded cheese and a meat on, you eat it with a knife and fork, and the German Speck, or this cured kind of ham, it's more like it's a German version of I think in parts of Italy they also have this, northern Italy. It's a version of, it's smoked prosciutto basically, and not as salty. It's very tender. So that would be one thing that you would do on there. You could put anything on it, like fresh tomatoes and cheese, but there was always that soft bread. Then they had what they called Knäckebrot. Knäckebrot is like, it means, Knäcke is like crispy bread. And this is Wasa bread, W-A-S-A. It comes from Sweden, no, I can't do, I wish I could do the Swedish chef thing. I'm not very good at that. But that was one of my favorites. So that with like a really nice soft spread on there, or maybe some kvark, which is kind of between yogurt and sour cream. But that with a little of the lumpfish caviar on there, that was one of my favorites. That was always the last one I had. And then they would have like brötchen, and brötchen are these German hard rolls that are hard on the outside. They're really crunchy. It's a very thin crust though, and the inside is kind of light and airy. And you peel from the little bit of bread from the inside out, and you put a little bit of butter on that, and you eat that separate. But then you would put some cheese or butter with this German, smoked prosciutto, the Speck on there. So that was a typical German meal, with maybe some other vegetables and things like that. Now, breakfast was very simple, typically, unless it was the weekend. Lunch was almost always the hot meal of the day, except on the weekends or if you were dining out. But breakfast was my favorite because they serve these 3-minute eggs, and 3-minute eggs are basically, you bring the water up to boil with it. You put the eggs in the pan, start with cold water, bring it up to boil to 3 minutes, turn it off, and then you cool them down. You could probably go to 4 minutes on that. But what that is that the white cooks completely inside the shell, but it leaves the yolk completely uncooked. And so they have these little stands. It's a little, they say the word egg on them sometimes, E-I. And so you put the egg in there with the small end up, and you cut the top off. You have to kind of break it, and then you saw the top off. And you don't forget to eat the little white, the cooked whites that are in the top of that. But then you dig down there just a quarter of an inch. Once you poke your spoon in, you start getting to the yolk that's uncooked inside of this lightly cooked but fully cooked egg white. And you scoop a little of each of those out, and you put it on some toasted bread or some other bread. And maybe it's weird, but I like a little bit of jelly with that, jelly or jam with just a little bit of egg on there. So you get a little sweet, the rich, the savory, and then the bread to kind of hold the whole thing together. That was my favorite meal. That, and there might be some other cured meats, but almost every Sunday morning they served that. And that is by far my favorite egg. But we don't have a way to cook here very much in the studio. We have one electric skillet. So I think Doc and I eat a lot of eggs here, a lot of microwave scrambled eggs. We are going to work on that. We're going to work on that tonight or in the morning, and we're going to try to do some soft-boiled eggs. If you're lucky, you'll see one eating on the air tomorrow, right here on Spoony Radio on Facebook. But that's the show for today. Just about wrapped up. I'm going to finish up my bourbon. Congratulations to the overturning of the 18th Amendment, and back to drinking, the prohibition of alcohol. Goodbye, and goodbye to you. Chef Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun. We're Spoony.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. In London, British Prime Minister Theresa May's government survives a vote in Parliament.
That no confidence vote had been called for by Ms. May's Labour opponents yesterday after the negotiated Brexit deal was overwhelmingly rejected by Parliament. Today's House of Commons vote was by a narrow 325 to 306 margin, meaning